Hey there, everyone. I'm going to go over packet page 15 with you and then briefly go over the instructions for today's assignment. So you should have already gotten out your packet and opened it to page 15. You should also have your air masses and fronts drawing activity paper out. We started that on Monday with the air masses side. So that you can just set off to the side right now while we go over packet page 15. We're going to start with warm front. If you don't have that as your first one, that's fine. Just wherever you have it, check to make sure you have the correct information. So how does it form? It forms when warm air moves over the colder air. So as they're coming together, the warm air kind of slides up and over the colder air mass. It moves slowly. It affects the weather by giving you hours or days of wet weather, clouds, precipitation, things like that. And the weather map symbol is red. It's a line with all those little half circles coming off of it. The really easy way to remember the warm front is, first of all, it's red, because red usually represents warm or hot things. And the way you can remember that it's the little round symbols is, I like to think of a sun, and the sun is round, at least when we draw it. So it's kind of like a bunch of little half suns on the line. So that's how I remember what shape is for warm front. And that's helpful too if there's ever a map that's black and white and doesn't have the color. You're going to have to rely on the shape to know what type of front it is rather than the color. Our next front that I'm going to do is cold front. It forms when the cold air moves under the warm air and it kind of shoves it up and out of the way. It moves fast. It tends to give us thunderstorms. And the weather map symbol is blue, and it has this little spike sticking out of it. And again, I like to remember that it's spikes because they kind of look like icicles. So icicles are pointy, as are the triangles on this symbol. So if there was a black and white map and you didn't have the colors to help you out, you can remember it because they're pointy, like an icicle for a cold front. And the next one is stationary. How does it form? It forms when cold and warm air collide and have a standoff. So basically they're coming towards each other, they smash into each other, and they hang out. A stationary front doesn't move. The word stationary literally means not moving. So a stationary front doesn't move. It brings you some light wind and precipitation. And the symbol is a combination of the warm front and the cold front symbols. They're pointing opposite directions because it's not moving, it's stationary. And finally, the occluded front. How it forms is cold air moves toward cool air. So we have three different air masses, a cold one, a cool one, and then there's a warm one that kind of gets trapped in between the two of them. This one the book doesn't tell us, so some of you got stuck on that. It doesn't tell us. It does move, and I'll talk about how we know it moves in just a minute. It affects the local weather by giving you clouds, rain, and snow, or snow. And the weather map symbol is purple, and again it's a combination of the triangle and the half circle. So it's a combination of the warm and cold. The colors melded together to make a lovely purple. And again, if you had a black and white map that you couldn't see the colors, you would know the occluded front because it has both symbols and they're both facing the same side. Whereas the stationary front, remember, the spikes were pointing one direction and the little half circles were pointing the other one. So the occluded would look different because everything's on the same side. And here's a fun fact. So fronts are moving in the direction that the symbol is pointing towards. So the stationary front, if you look back at your picture, the points are going one way, the circles are going the other way. So they're pointing two different directions, therefore it's not actually moving. So we do know that the occluded front is moving because everything's pointing the same direction. And I have a feeling that the speed of those just varies depending on how fast the air masses were moving when they ran into each other in the first place. So when you look on a weather map and you see those symbols, you can easily predict how the weather is going to change in an area if there's a front nearby. If you know that the front is moving towards that area, you can predict what's going to happen when the front gets there based on knowing what type of weather that front brings. So that's another way. We've been talking over the last couple weeks about how meteorologists make predictions, and I had told you that there's a whole lot of different things that go into it. So one of those things is taking a look at a map, taking a look at where the fronts are, and then trying to figure out, when is that front going to get to our location, and what's it going to look like when it gets there. All right, so you can set your packet to the side now and pick up your drawing activity. The air mass side should already be completed. We did that on Monday, I believe. So now we're taking a look at the front side. The directions are slightly different, so please make sure you're following along and referring back to the directions as needed, because if you do the same thing that you did on the other side of the paper, you're going to have it incorrect. So the first thing you'll do, and I kind of paraphrased the directions a little bit, but you're going to write down the 4 types of fronts, 1 in each section. Doesn't matter what order, just as long as you have 1 for each. You're going to write down the weather that each one brings, so you can just kind of transfer that from your packet page right on over to this assignment. And now you're going to draw in color, yes, I said color, a diagram of each front. So I want you to use the red and blue colored pencils to represent the warm and cool air masses. Have arrows within those air masses showing which direction they are going. Do not just draw colored arrows. You are also not drawing the weather map symbols. That's something people try to do. Every time I do this activity, people try to draw the weather map symbols. You already drew those. I do not want you to draw them again. I'm looking at pictures that are similar to the ones in the book, with the big cool air masses and warm air masses colliding, showing the weather that's happening, like clouds and rain and things like that. And put a little scenery underneath, draw a little town, maybe a person down there with their umbrella. So make it look similar to what's in the book. Don't just draw a colored arrow. Don't just draw a weather map symbol. Those will not be correct. All right, so this is different than what you did on the other side. On the other side, remember, we just drew the weather. We drew a little scene depicting the weather. On this side, we are drawing, I want to see those colored blue and red air masses with arrows. And then you can add in some of the weather in the middle where it would actually form. So that's all I need to go over with you. You do not need to work with a partner on this. You can work independently. Make sure if you are borrowing colored pencils or crayons that you're getting them from your assigned lab table, and you can just take them right back to your seat and use them once you're ready to color. You don't need to be clumping up at the lab tables making lots of loud noises. All right, so you'll have the rest of the period to work on this. Do not turn it in today. I will collect them, or at least start collecting them, the finished ones, tomorrow when I return. Okay, behave. Bye. Thanks.